While this looks convincingly like we are standing in the middle of the rolling hills of America's heartland, in fact, we're in Canada, in beautiful Calgary, Alberta. And below me is one of the key important location exterior sets for the entire film. In fact, I believe the finale happens over here. And it's a very special take because this is the first day they're filming on this set. But everything that you can see around me, from the house to the barn to the fields of corn and barley to the village, actually almost like the little town of trucks and trailers and film equipment and 200 crew members, none of this was here a few weeks ago. So how do you build a fictional world and create enough infrastructure to allow people to come into it and tell a story? Well, that's the job of the location manager. And we're going to talk to this film's location manager, Bruce Brownstein, about just what they went through to make all this possible.
So, Bruce, nothing that we can see here right now was here when you guys first came to this location. Is that right?
That is correct.
So how do you find a location that is empty of a whole set and yet know that it's the right location?
Well, on this one, Jason Reitman, he had an idea about a particular farm in farmland, but having there be a rise in the landscape.
Okay.
So we started actually out east of here where it's more sort of flat prairie landscape. And we looked for a rise where we could create the set, or we looked for old barns that would give us a starting point.
Oh, so hopefully you would find a barn on a rise that would supply...
Yes.
Did you?
We did, in fact, find one.
Okay.
We found a great barn that didn't have a house on it. It had a nice contained piece of property surrounded by crops that would allow us to create the set. And it was isolated. It was kind of perfect. The only thing was it was a bit too far out of the zone as far as travel goes, especially with the children.
So you'd lose so much time just getting to the set, you wouldn't have enough time to shoot.
Yes.
But you loved the barn. So what happened?
Well, we loved everything about it, in particular the barn.
Yeah.
And we were driving through this area, and this area is more foothills. It's more rolling. The farms are smaller. You see your neighbor compared to out in the prairie. And they reacted to that. Eric Steelberg and Jason, they both said, you know, we like that. It's a little cozier. It feels like it would be on the outskirts of our town. So we started scouting through this area, and we knew about this landowner because they own a lot of land around here. And we came to this hill thinking this would be a good setting to create the farm.
You're implying that this barn was moved here from somewhere.
Exactly. There was the farm we really liked, the Gibson family. They had this barn on their property, and it looked pretty much as it does now. And so the idea was, let's buy that barn, bring it, and make it part of our set.
Okay, that sounds simple enough, but who do you call to move a building?
Well, we got a structural engineer who went and looked at it and gave us an idea. The construction coordinator on the job felt that it was totally possible to do.
Can I ask, did it require moving a shell and building a frame and sort of draping the shell over the frame?
Exactly.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
The barn was cut into pieces, as big as possible, and trucked out here, and then it hung on the frame that was created.
So when you say it's cut into pieces, I can't see any big seams.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but it was like chopped into what, like 8 by 8 foot chunks? And
no, it was like the ends and the sides.
Yeah.
And the roof, it was as it looks now, but in worse condition. So the roof was sort of manipulated and recreated.
Oh my gosh.
But it's the same barn material that sat on that farm for 130 years.
I mean, the veracity of it, it feels totally genuine and like it's been here for 130 years.
So we came here in the winter and we looked at this landscape, and it had been a canola crop prior, so it was stubby with snow. But we knew we wanted corn. We just didn't know exactly how much corn. So in the end, the production designer and Jason, they figured out, okay, the footprint of the house, the barn, these silos, the dirt field, and corn around it. And then the farmer who owns this property, they were putting in barley, which works for us. So,
so those are real barley fields.
Oh, yeah.
And this is real corn.
Oh, yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the house itself is completely constructed from scratch, yes?
Exactly, yes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What happens to this barn on this property when the production is done? Does it end up staying here?
Oh, gosh, no. No, our obligation is to return this land to the way it was.
Exactly.
Full crop field. We'll remove all the pads, the roads, the gravel parking lots, and put it all back the way it was.
And that's that must be a regular part of your job, not just the coming in and building an entire world, but also removing it.
Yes. Yeah. It's the same. Luckily for us, it's the owner of this land also has a contracting company, and their business is roads and removal and that sort of practical skill.
So you came here in the winter to scout this place. How do you help Jason see what's possible when you guys are tromping around knee-deep in snow?
Well, the best thing about Jason is he has an eye,
Yeah.
and he knows. And he has a vision that he knows better than anyone about what the house will be, the relationship of house to barn, the view away from the farm, to say that it's part of a community, yet it's separate from the community.
Right,
You know, this farm is outside of our fictitious town, and if the kids arrive here on their scooter or they come in a car, it's believable that they haven't gone really very far.
Now, is this an area in which you are highly familiar with the surroundings and the people?
No, part of our job is when the task came to be that the farm should be closer to Calgary, closer to the hotels, we identified usually mapping and
Like a big map in a circle?
topography to look for where will we get those rolling hills, where are we still within the zone, the union zones, because there's multiple zones
Right.
for travel. And we drove up and down every road and came up with prospects, but it's funny, of the scouts, 3 of us all stopped and photographed this hill.
Really?
And so at the end of the day, we're all like, I thought that was the best one too.
Oh, fascinating.
And then the fact that it's one owner who owns everything we can see makes it easier. And that owner was obliging and willing to make an arrangement for us to do this.
And I would imagine that specific thing is the kind of institutional knowledge that you possess. It's like one owner's always better than a bunch of different neighbors to have to.
Absolutely. It was interesting in the early days when we were out in the prairie on real farms, like where people have 2 or 3 sections of farm. They're a little bit suspicious about what you're up to and what do you mean you want to make a movie on my land?
Right.
But it's amazing how they will come around when they see the director show up and talk about the movie, talk about what we'd like to do. And it doesn't take very long and they're on board as well.
That's actually, that's a really particular part of your job, isn't it? It's always talking people into this new reality for a period of time.
We're salesmen.
When you're doing that base level, just driving every road within the zone, is it always about the same amount of time? Is it like 2 or 3 days of driving for a team of people? Like how does that work?
No, this one started in January. I had a call from the exec producer who thought about coming up here, and he knew I'd done a few movies here before, and asked for some scouts. Early days, you get directive from the production designer, from the director, perhaps from the producer, and you kind of have to find the middle ground of what exactly am I looking for, because one is saying left, one's saying right, one's saying the middle.
Yeah.
So you go with common sense. If you have a script, a good description, that really helps. But this one, it took months. It took months to find the right farm, because initially it was barn oriented. Yeah. Then it was rise in the landscape oriented and create everything. And then it was, no, let's be closer to town. Let's be in rolling hills that feels cozier, smaller farms. And that's how we ended up here.
The degree of immersion here, we're walking around and it's like there's no uncanny valley. Everything feels totally genuine. That must be thrilling for you.
Totally. It's the best way. It really is. Because then the designer, the director, lighting, everybody gets a say, and you get the perfect set that hopefully will make the best movie.
Bruce, thank you so much for walking me through this.
You're welcome.
What a thrill. I really appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.